Cruz. I'm the executive director of HarlemStage, and I have been here since 1998. I came and was actually recruited from the Studio Museum in Harlem, where I had been the deputy director prior to that. And I've had a really rich career and life in the arts, primarily in the performing arts, but on occasion in the visual arts as well. So when they recruited me to come to HarlemStage, which was at that time Aaron Davis Hall, it was like returning home to the performing arts. So I've been here since 1998 and had a great time.
Hi, I'm James King. I'm the managing director here at HarlemStage, and I'm actually in my second iteration here as managing director. I've been here now since 2011. Prior to that, I worked in the theater world and in the dance world all over New York City. And I had a stint as a performer, as a young artist. I came to HarlemStage when it was in fact still called Aaron Davis Hall. And it was here at the beginning of the drive to move into the building that is now known as the Gatehouse, where we currently sit.
Essentially, the idea of having a room of our own came from some of the frustrations that attended to the fact that at Aaron Davis Hall, we were the managing entity, the organization that managed and fundraised for and programmed Aaron Davis Hall. It was a building and a facility that was owned, however, by City College. I think that board members and staff at Aaron Davis Hall at the time got the feeling that our tenure there would not be a forever thing. It was during a time of real fiscal crisis for the college. And as the college started to build up, it was seen that it might be, there might be a need for us to have a place that was our own. So earlier directors of the board, as well as staff at Aaron Davis Hall, had started to look at the possibility of grabbing this space and working to transform it. With that, there had been a planning grant, and we'd gotten some funding to support that planning, and this is prior to my coming in. And then,
right before Pat joined the organization, that discussion was picked up again. I encountered several documents that included sketches of the Gatehouse as a potential location. And when Pat joined the staff as our executive director, one of the first discussions she and I had was about continuing to attempt to acquire the Gatehouse. We were successful in convincing people that it was a viable idea, and we ran full force, full steam ahead. I have to say that I then left the organization to go and pursue other objectives at that point, but when I came back, the Gatehouse was in existence, and I got to join the staff again in this beautiful space.
And just to add a little bit to what James has said, I think that during that transition of leadership, it was felt by the board that this might not be something that we could do. So one of the things that James persuaded me to do was that we had a little bit of a persuading to do, that this was something we could do, because one of the things is that we had another potential grant from UMass, the Upper Manhattan Empowerment Zone, to continue this planning and do the work that would lead to the development of the Gatehouse. And the idea was, the very first meeting that I had, the very first day, was to convince that funder that we could go forward with
this project.
Because again, it was called into question, and my position was you don't leave the money on the table. You go forward, and I persuaded the board with, some people who believed that we absolutely should do that, while others felt that we didn't have the finances, to really do that.
Right.
And James was the one who was like, this is the priority task of your beginning, and that's how we began that work. And once given a job, I'm like a dog with a bone. It's just like, you gotta do it, and there's no question about it, and that's the joy of it.
Right.
So we were able, but we had incredible partners. I have to say that the Department of Cultural Affairs was critical. They gave us the lease in which we would be able to sustain this building, as they have with the Metropolitan Museum and all of the other city facilities on city-owned property in New York. So they were important partners. The Department of Design and Construction was critical. They were so, and under David Burney, who was the commissioner then, they were so supported. And for them, this was a portfolio project. So everything that they did was done with love and care. So between those two departments, and you have to realize that richer institutions take on projects like this with their own funding. We had to show that we could raise the money and had to raise part of it and have it committed before we even moved a stone. So that was the biggest part of my work, which was to go out and make sure that we had the money, that we were working with the appropriate agencies to then make this happen. And that partnership between our staff, our board, and these city agencies that came together to make this happen, it couldn't have happened without that. And we had a team that was, everybody on it was more knowledgeable than me about building a building and what you have to do, especially for historic preservation, because this is an historically landmark building. And
city, state, and national landmark.
Yeah, and so we had to make sure that every single element that should be, in terms of your question about how you make decisions, we knew that there were elements in this building that we absolutely had to preserve. And everything else that we wanted to do and needed to do, we had to go before all the planning commissions to make sure that we could do it. So it was a real team effort, a community effort. And again, there was never any kind of flagging of interest or commitment to that. That we actually opened the place, the HarlemStage Gatehouse. We went through a branding change to claim a new name for us. And we opened it in 2006. So this was approximately, 6 years after planning, 2 years of construction. And we came into the building even before we had a CMO. And we came in and we opened this facility with a project and a series of programs called Waterworks. And Waterworks was based on the original purpose of this building and extended the idea of this being a space from which water, a critical need in this city, was dispensed. We felt that this now becomes the space from which art and ideas flow. And we feel that that is as critical as anything else. So we opened with Bill T. Jones's Chapel Chapter, a work that he designed for this space, created, and after that took it out into the world, which was for us one of the most wonderful things. We did a piece, these are the 4 original Waterworks pieces that we did. One was Tanya Leon's making a composition for us during this period as well. Roger Gendry Smith doing a work called Who Killed Bob Marley. And the 4th piece was, Tanya, it had to be a dance.
Tanya.
Oh, Sekou Sundiata. Yes, thank you. doing the 51st Dream State. So those are the 4 pieces that we began with. And I think that it was an incredible and remarkable thing, because we had just finished this building. We were kind of sweating, okay, how do we pay for these works in addition to, you know, having done the building. But those were the 4 pieces that we began with. We are now celebrating the 10th anniversary of Waterworks, and you know, we've done many works in between. We commissioned over 50 artists in that 10-year period, and I think that's significant to make new work. These are new works by artists of color that have been created here, that we commissioned here, in some instances that we produced here, and now have gone out into the world. The last 2 years we were devoted to celebrating the work of James Baldwin, which was so important for us, and artists were coming from all over, and we were drawing artists to this project. And in that period we had Stu come to us to do a work called Notes of a Native Song, and that was very important. And then we ended last year and the James Baldwin celebration with a work by Michelle Indicacello that is called
Can I Get a Witness?
Can I Get a Witness?
Right.
Tribute to James Baldwin as well. And that piece was the perfect culmination of that 10 years of what Waterworks did. So there were lots of works in between, lots of artists, as I've said, 50. Vijay Iyer and Mike Ladd did an incredible piece on veterans of color called Holding It Down, the Veterans Dream Project, and any number of other works. I don't know if there are any that come to mind for you.
I think probably the most important aspect of all of that is that the initiative, the Waterworks initiative, is a direct result of that idea that where water once flows, now art and ideas flow. And so we commission these artists to take their germ of an idea and turn it into a project that is able to be brought to life and shared with the general public. And our Waterworks series has become one of our signature series in that respect.
Yeah. What's really important about this space is, and the design, is that we were actually able to cut through this existing huge brownstone, which has been quarried out in New York. And we, even as we were looking for some pieces to be on the facade, we found that there's no longer very much there. But they cut this out to make this entrance so that we can have this entrance on this floor, because this was a below ground entrance. And what is really important about this is that the largest part of this work was to excavate this underground space. And what we did was, when we came in, we found that we were looking at granite here, because when the architect was first designing this, we thought this would be wallboard. And then we came in and said, no need for wallboard, we got beautiful granite. So then we ended up again using what was this tower as a point of circulation, and I thought that was a brilliant idea on the part of the architect Rolf Oldhausen from Oldhausen Du Bois. Worked with us on this project, and he was just remarkably sensitive and knew what was needed for this space. So we moved from the granite again to this brick back to rubble wall, which we then put this staircase in, as well as this access, this Lula elevator for access, so that everyone can get up and down to the theater. There was a beautiful round staircase that went up here that was, but only, like one person, it was almost like a round ladder. So it really wasn't for circulation, but I think it was for air circulation, which was at the top of the building. So again, these are the few elements in the building which have a modern, architectural elements. And you'll see that repeated in various other places, but get a load of these hinges. Have you ever seen hinges like this? these doors were rust. This is just, we sent them out and had them refurbished, and they came back beautifully done. And then, if you look up from there, you'll see this incredible stained glass windows. That was another part of the work that we did, which was then to match this glass, and that was done by a firm in North Carolina. And they took the fragments of glass that were there and then restored them and put them in this kind of random patterning that they divined was what it was before. So, it really feels like a church. And I have to tell you that artist, I was just at the funeral of Jerry Allen, who was a remarkable pianist, and there were so many of the artists who performed here. Jerry was among them. And they really said, one of the artists and historians said, this place is sacred. It's a sacred space for performance. So it has felt like that to us. And the fact that it feels that way for artists and our community is just so special. So more of that work. So then we come into this incredible arch. So it's already set for theater. You don't need to. When we came into the space, it was in remarkably good shape, actually. The roof had been completely dismantled. It was, slate? And it had been taken away. People just came in and took what they needed. As I said, the largest part of our task, and you'll see that from some of the images, was to remove the landfill that had been put in, and that had been put in to prevent children from coming in, because this was their playground. And they could fall over these wells that went down 7 stories. So they put landfill in there to prevent that. So our job was to take this landfill out, and we were blessed that it was not toxic. There was no poison in it. So that was one of those moments where you're holding your breath while they're going, it's okay, So we have had to, and I hate this frankly, we've had to put these shades on these beautiful stained glass windows, but it's very hard to light with that kind of light coming in, so you have an automatic coloration that comes, and we leave it closed most of the time. And these drapes, which are acoustic, also are covering windows that are also stained glass. And as you know, Ken, this is a telescoping seat system, which people have come from different places in the world to see it because it's so effective, because it's automated. I mean, our guys have to bring it down and set the chairs up, but the fact that it comes out and comes all the way down to here means that this space can be entirely flexible. This fixture here, which is the houses our lighting and sound systems, and the seating unit is the only fixture in this space. So we have done parties here, we do setups for tables, we do performances. We can use the existing proscenium arch to do proscenium light. It is entirely flexible, and we designed the program and the architects delivered on it. So it was just remarkable. And then, even with the roof gone, there was very little, they had to come through almost with toothbrushes to clean the bricks off. But there wasn't a lot of damage. It was just a cleaning job. This building was completed in 1890. And there were 2 different phases of it, from the Croton Aqueduct. But it was the time in which public spaces were given the attention that you would give to a palace. And the idea that the public could participate and be in these spaces lifted everybody up. It lifts up your spirit, your ability to be creative, so that that exists for the artists that we work with, but it also exists for the audiences that come into this space and our community. And you feel grand, you know, you don't feel lowly and underprivileged or any of the things that economies can do to people, but that art can reverse, can build up the spirit where it's been torn down.